welcome back to another episode of the Sports Department Podcast. We are here. We're back. Joe Paolantonio, helming the ship today. No Justin, no Stephen Bologna. We have Stephen Clark and Jesse Norman here with you. And this is very important. This is our first official, probably, 2021-2022 NFL season podcast, and we're getting into it. We have we're planned out. We're gonna do all the divisions. So we're gonna go through all 8 predictions, talk about their off season, to give hopefully some hot takes. But Staff, how we doing, boys?
I'm doing well. This podcast, when you think of this podcast, when you look on the YouTubes or wherever for this podcast, you see majority of our videos and podcasts are football episodes. We produce our most content during football, whether it's predictions for the week or breaking down the week or whatever it may be. They're honestly some of my favorite ones. They're some of the most entertaining ones. We get some silly stuff on there, some crazy hot takes, like you said. So I'm very excited to be talking about football this early so far in July. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we get preseason in a couple weeks. It's a good time. It's a good time for football to be starting back up, especially with the NBA coming to a close. I love this close gap. I don't want that. I don't want to go back to, football ends in February, basketball ends beginning of June, and we just have nothing except baseball until September.
Wow, the shot at baseball.
I don't know. Shot. We also have
everybody. They call it the dog days of July. In
dog
baseball.
days, because we're dogging days.
Yes, we are.
You're dogging. What I think is great is that we have allowed for some football talk on the wrestling podcast.
Of course.
The Wrestling Department podcast, which is very nice.
Of course, I initiate those podcasts. I love talking wrestling, and if no one else is gonna initiate a podcast, I'm gonna get as many wrestling podcasts as I can out there, and that's what I've been doing. It's been some great stuff going on in wrestling.
There really has.
It really has. We even got Steve on it. Steve watched the pay-per-view on Sunday, so go check that video out, and along with all the other wrestling recaps while you're at it.
Wow, it's a big name. It's a big name.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. So this is big. We're starting. We're going division by division, and the question became the worst division. You want to go worst to best. You don't want to blow all your eggs, right away in your first basket here, so to speak. So we thought the NFC South, right? Steve Clark really thought the NFC South was the worst division. Are we in unison on this? Is this?
I think your dog agrees that it's the worst division.
Dog days. It's the dog days of July.
It's just top heavy. This division's very top heavy. And then towards the bottom
and the top is 1.
The top is 1, exactly, and then the bottom is 2. You can throw maybe 1 half and half in there. He was a division winner last year. I'd put him at half and half right now. But the other 2 are 2 of the worst teams in the league you have in this division. So I personally do think this is the worst division in football.
I think so. I'm with you on that. And I think all the other divisions have 2 teams that could compete.
Yeah.
This really is the only one that really, like, the three bottom teams just don't seem to have much of a shot, to be fair. I mean, the AFC South isn't tremendous. No, it's kind of
it's not.
Really had a shot. It's always kind of been bottom of the barrel, but this is tough. We're gonna make our way from the worst to best of this division too. So that's gonna start us off with the Atlanta Falcons, who are in a very interesting position. So new coach in Atlanta. So I think that's really where you want to start, because I mean this was the Dan Quinn team that Jesse was so fond of with their construction. So now, I mean, we're really.
I didn't love their construction.
I know.
we're off to kind of a clean slate here in Atlanta. New coach, a lot of
Yeah.
rookies. Who knows? What do you think?
Yeah, they brought in Arthur Smith, obviously Titans offensive coordinator, which I think is going to translate to the Titans possibly taking a step back. I don't know if it's going to translate to the Falcons necessarily taking a step forward. The problem with the Falcons is any given year, they were 4-12 last year. Would any of us be surprised if they all of a sudden win 10 games this year? Not necessarily, I don't think. They're such a hot and cold team, and they have been going even back to, Super Bowl run and before. There are so many years where they're good and then they're bad, and then they're good and then they're bad. But one constant on that team was always Julio Jones, who has been traded. You're now putting a lot on Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage, and newly acquired tight end Kyle Pitts to really spearhead this offense with a running back who showed promise in Carolina with Mike Davis, but you don't necessarily know what you're getting in him. A lot of people expected them to draft a running back. I don't think they did until I believe it was the 6th or 7th round. So they're clearly going in with Mike Davis as their guy. They weren't a good team. They can maybe get healthier, but they really did not add much this offseason. Solid draft. You would hope so, especially when you have a top 5 pick in the draft. You would hope that you have a good draft class. So they made a couple good picks. Richie Grant, who I liked. And then you obviously have Jalen Mayfield, who could have gone anywhere from the 1st round to the 3rd round. People didn't know where he was going to go, whether he's a guard or a tackle as well. I don't know what to look at for the Falcons, but if I had to guess, probably like a 5 to 6 win team. But I also would not be surprised if somehow Matt Ryan regains that MVP form with Arthur Smith. Because again, I think Arthur Smith is a really, really good offensive coordinator. I just don't know if they have the sheer talent to really compete in this division and in this conference that has so many good teams that are at least just better than them. Like on paper, just so much more talented than they are.
Yeah, when I look at this Falcons team from last year, going from last year, first of all, I see a team that lost a lot of close games, whether if they blew the lead or tried to come back and just fell short. They blew a lot of games, and their record doesn't really show what kind of team they were last year. Yeah, they weren't the greatest team, but no, they weren't the worst team in the league. They had the talent, but they got rid of Julio Jones. Like you said, they had a pretty good drafting Kyle Pitts, of course, who could be a generational talent and one of the better tight ends in the league next year. But I just don't see this team winning the division anywhere near close winning the division. You're not going to get a wild card spot. There's a lot of other better teams in that. So I think around 4 wins again. I really do think about 4 wins again for this team is about right for the Falcons.
I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win games with that defense. As much as we could have liked Arthur Smith and what he could possibly do with Mike Davis and Matt Ryan, who has been pretty consistent. They have done nothing really in the offseason to supplement that defense, which was already one of the worst. I mean, the Dante Fowler signing was an absolute disappointment, I think, in Atlanta. I think we're talking about one of the worst defensive units in the league. I think that there's just, you can't overcome it.
No, and you can't count on old Matt
They're just
Ryan.
Wasting Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, absolutely.
That too. And you
Grady
can't count
Jarrett's
on
one of the best interior defensive linemen. And
Agreed.
they went out and they got Deron Harmon. Can you pair Harmon with Jarrett? I don't think so. That's 2 nose tackles.
Yeah, and even bad defenses sometimes can get bailed out by their offense, and I don't think old Matt Ryan is really gonna be slinging the ball all the time. And he's getting a little washed now. He's not the same Matty Ice that we used to seeing about a couple of years ago. So I don't think their offense can bail them out either to make up for the crappy defense. So it's going to be a rough year for Atlanta, plain and simple.
Now, the big story out of Atlanta Falcons camp right now is their kicker, Young Ho Koo, had his cleats stolen from his
with
Jeep.
his Jeep.
Do you guys think that this is
The
going?
Jeep was stolen as well.
Yeah,
But
but
the
he was more you said you can keep the Jeep.
he needs the cleats.
I want the
Do
cleats.
you think this is going to have an effect on the team this year?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I think this puts him from a 4-win team to a 3-win team. I
Hey,
think
you never know. If he doesn't have the right cleats on, he could miss a game-winning kick. There you go.
This could be.
Here's
The butterfly effect.
Here's my thing also about Atlanta is they seemingly tried to reconstruct this roster on the fly really quickly to try to give it one more go with Matt Ryan. If they do only win 3 to 4 games again, they end up with another top 5 pick. Do you think they finally pull the trigger on getting a new quarterback, or do they kind of just do again what they did this year of now we're going to get an impact player for Matt Ryan as opposed to going out and getting the future quarterback?
There's no attachment with this coach and with this GM to Matt Ryan. I think this is his test. I mean, he doesn't really have the pieces to get it done, but I think this is going to be it for him.
Yeah, and I don't see any other team picking him up too. Like, I think it's just hanging up the cleats at that point. They might be in a good enough position in the draft to draft a quarterback. I don't really know who's being looked at to be a top 5 quarterback or top 5 draft pick in an upcoming draft, but I don't even think they need to like get rid of Ryan or trade Ryan for a quarterback because they might be in a position just to draft one in general.
What about you, Jesse? What do you think?
I think if they're sitting at 4 or 5 wins again and there's a quarterback there, I think they'll take him if they're top. If they're top 5, I think they'll take a quarterback. This class is nowhere near what this previous class has been, obviously, with Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, Jones, all those guys, even going into the later rounds of Trask and Mond. There's probably only 2 to 3 quarterbacks in this class, and I don't really love any of them, honestly. Rattler, maybe can show something different. The UNC quarterback, who I'm blanking on right now, but and the Ole Miss quarterback as well, could maybe sneak themselves up into the first round. But this next coming class isn't what this previous class was. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up with the top 3 pick grabbing a quarterback. But if they're picking around 9, 10, maybe 11, there's not going to be a guy there that's really going to make you better in the long run.
So what would have to happen for the Falcons to be successful this year? Like, what's one thing that would have to go
Be
right?
healthy.
That's it. It's health.
Be healthy, and the defense needs to improve.
I was going to say the defense. I wasn't even thinking about healthy.
Forward.
I just say defense needs to be solid. If you're a top 15 defense, they'll be okay. They're not though.
I would say even be a top 18. Top 18 defense will get you at least 9 wins, I think.
But still, I don't think for the NFC that's good enough to make anything. Because there's a lot of that. Once we get to that NFC West, there's a lot of good teams in that division that honestly, 2 wild cards might be coming out of there. So it's going to be very interesting.
I'd be shocked if 2 wild cards didn't come out of the West.
Yeah.
At least. So now we're moving on here. The Falcons, not really high on them. Another team that I think doesn't lend itself to excitement is these Carolina Panthers in year 2 under the rule. So they at least were a little more active this offseason. We have this is quite a lot of moves here. Morgan Fox, they gave him a 2-year deal. Hassan Reddick, Denzel Perryman, Pat Elfine, Cam Irving, Taylor Moton. What do we think here? Is there any of these that move the needle?
I like the offense a lot with this team. Just plain and simple. I think, they got their quarterback. A lot of teams were very risky to take the move with Sam Darnold. I really, really like the move with Sam Darnold. Sam is too young to be given up on, especially with what he was given in New York. I think you have healthy McCaffrey. They signed Dan Arnold. You have Robbie Anderson there. You have a couple of weapons all around him. Not the best weapons, but solid NFL football players. You're not going to get
a lot better than he had in New York.
Exactly, 100%.
Whole lot
exactly.
better.
So this is very make or break for Sam Darnold, as it will be for Daniel Jones when we get to the NFC East too, because he is very stacked around him as well. But I like the offense. The offense excites me a little bit. The defense is still a little young, still a little inexperienced. So I'm curious to see how the defense does. But I do think this offense could be a fun one to watch. Will it be successful all the time? No. Will they make mistakes? Yes. Will Sam Darnold still be seeing ghosts and throwing picks? Probably. But it should be a little bit more exciting than Mr. Teddy Two Gloves, who was down there.
Yeah, here's my thing with Carolina. If Darnold works out and they see enough flashes and they know that he's their guy moving forward, this is probably a team set to start contending next year. Because the defense next, yeah. If the defense, while they're not great, they are young. They have young pieces, Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns, and they also signed Hassan Reddick to only a $6 million deal, which is just insane. This guy is a double-digit sack machine, and you get him for less than double digits. And then they shored up the offensive line a little bit. They tagged Moton, which was a great decision. He was one of the best right tackles in the NFL. I think getting David Moore from the Seahawks is honestly a really low-key signing that can really help them in the long run. They have DJ Moore, obviously, and they lost Curtis Samuel, but they have Robbie Anderson, and they have these guys. But David Moore gives you that reliable slot receiver on third down, on 3rd and 4 that Darnold can dump it off to. McCaffrey being back healthy is going to be big. I think this team, as not good as I think they're going to be, I think they could easily, win only 6 games. But I think they're going to show flashes here and there that are going to show you things are kind of looking up for them. Especially on the defensive end, honestly. While I like the offense and I think what they're going to do is going to help them, obviously, and they're going to be a better offense than defense. I think in the next couple years, we're going to see, Derek Brown develop, Brian Burns, who is already, a stud player, Jeremy Chin figuring out safety and sub linebacker. I haven't even mentioned Deontay Jackson, who's probably the fastest corner in the league and is very underrated. They're going to fill out that defense through the draft, which they've been doing. And I think they're going to be a pretty good team. They're kind of setting themselves up where, after the Saints, who are already started to crumble down, and after the Bucks, this Bucks team has kind of started to go down, they're going to be in position to take over that division.
But how far away do you think this team realistically is from being back to the Super Bowl? A contender like
Super Bowl, I say 3 years, 3-4 years. Playoff wise, I think they could make it next year. I think they can surprise people this year and win 8 games. No, this year I think their ceiling is everything absolutely breaks well for them. Maybe 9 games. And I think that's their ceiling. Everything could obviously the Darnold experiment could entirely fail. They have nothing to fall back on, and they could be a 3-14 team. I don't think that's going to happen. I believe in Darnold enough. I think he has enough talent. I think most of what happened in New York was not his fault. They were significantly a better team when he was playing as opposed to his backups. There's something still there with Darnold, and I think Matt Rule will tap into it.
Is there a way this team makes the playoffs this year? What would have to happen?
Oof. They'd have to win the division.
Saints would have to be – I don't think they'd have to win the division, but if they get in as a wild card, they'd have to get the Saints would have to come crumbling down. Like, Saints would have to be really bad, They'd have to win both their games against them. They'd have to sweep the Falcons. They'd probably also have to take one on the Bucks. Like you're looking at, you'd have to have like a 5-1 record in division, I think, to really try to make the playoffs.
Don't see it.
No, I don't see it this year either.
No, I don't see it. They would really need the Saints to collapse fully to try to
And that's not
become
gonna
that
happen.
second team in the South. That can maybe happen a year from now with the Saints when another year's been added on to those guys that are already kind of older. But this year, the Saints could obviously still be a playoff team, and we'll get to them next. But they would really need them to fall apart to slingshot their way into a wild card spot.
Do you think that Luke Kuechly retiring is going to have an effect on this team?
Not. I mean, yeah, of course, because his presence and everything on the field, and obviously it's more of like a leadership type thing of having that core guy on defense. Because like we said earlier when we started talking about the Panthers, they're very young on defense. They're very inexperienced and they're all very young. So it does. It takes a leadership role out, and it opens it up for someone else to take that on defense. I don't know who. Maybe Shaq Thompson, I would say, gets that role now.
Yeah, that's who my money would be.
But no, yeah, of course, it hurts a little bit. Any star potential Hall of Fame player retiring definitely takes a hit. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, well,
Joe?
and I think when he originally retired.
Yeah.
When he originally retired, this defense was built around him. That's kind of the problem they're doing now, is they're trying to rebuild a defense that was built specifically for a generational talent at inside linebacker who is no longer there.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think about Panthers? Loving them?
I'm not excited. I think that they're going to be fun. I think they can do things on offense. And I think that they're in the process of building something really good. And this is an organization that really has been trying to start fresh, just like Atlanta. I think they're a little further along, but no, I'm not excited. I'm not excited for Carolina. We all deserve to see how good Sam Darnold really is, and that's really what everyone's going to be watching for.
Yeah, definitely.
In this area.
I agree.
All righty. So actually, we're going from bottom to top in the division.
Yeah.
And this team came in second.
Here we go.
However, just today, we're visiting the White House.
I know.
Celebrating their Super Bowl victory. Somehow, some way. The 11-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are running back the exact same team, are looking to defend their title. They did it. They won on the road in the playoffs against the Saints, the Packers, the football team. I mean, what a run. And then to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. We all know that. Let's talk about these guys. Is this a foregone conclusion they're winning the division?
Yeah. Easily.
Yeah, I think so.
Easily. Not even, me saying that as a Brady fan, but, obviously the Saints don't have Breeze, and we'll get to the Saints in a little bit since they won the division, but they're not going to take too far of a step back, but they're still going to take a step back. And I do think the Bucs now finally have that time to get that chemistry that they missed out with, all the teams missed out on in 2020 because of the pandemic. But a new quarterback is, of course, one of the hardest things to do, and not be able to have all the training camps and preseason without a new quarterback is very, very hard. Brady was hurt last year too, torn MCL throughout the whole season. So he'll be healthy. I think that helps a lot, and just the chemistry of everybody on the team, and it's just they're running it back. I think it's a very, very good chance they make the Super Bowl. I won't go as far to say as that they're bringing another championship home yet, but I really do think it's a good chance that they're in the big game in February.
Absolutely.
Yeah, going back to back is hard. It's hard. Like in the
Football's the hardest
NFL,
sport,
I think
honestly.
more than any other. Yeah. Especially with the health, just the way the game takes the toll on your body, the way teams also, game plan for you once they've seen it. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a problem for the Buccaneers because they're going to be probably better this year, at least in the regular season, than they were last year, because you really got to see them clicking in the playoffs. They were kind of running all of this on the fly, especially with Bruce Arians as the coach, because Bruce Arians is going to let his guys do what they're going to do. He's not going to install that game plan early on in July, August, and then stick to that throughout. He's going to build as it goes. And the Bucks, like you guys alluded to, they quite literally brought everybody back.
Never been
all
seen
22
before.
Starters. Every single team, every single component of that team is back. And that's a scary thought for the rest of the NFL, and especially the NFC. And most importantly, the NFC South. I don't see another team winning this division, barring, Brady getting hurt and being out for the year. And even then, I'm not sure if I would bet against them, because this roster, 1 through 22 is probably the best, I would say, in the NFL. If you look at just every, they have a starter. There isn't really a weak spot. I mean, you could argue the weakest spot they have is an aging left tackle who's still, top 10, top 15 in the NFL. So they only got better through the draft.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that a little
Going
bit
back
too.
to back is hard, but
no,
they're good, man.
I like what they did in the draft too. Kyle Trask was one of my more underrated quarterbacks going into the draft too, and having him sit behind Brady for maybe another year, can learn from one of the greatest and potentially be the future of that franchise. I think it's a really, really smart move. So I like that move a lot. I think they also drafted Joe Tryon, I think, was another one. They're just adding to that defense a little bit there. But Joe, what do you think? I like this team a lot.
Things would have to go catastrophically bad for the Bucs not to make the playoffs. I think the question becomes how many games do they win? It's more over whether or not they're going to make the playoffs. I think that this team has a chance to only lose 3 or 4 games over the course of this entire season. Looking at the Buccaneers schedule, trying to pull it up here, because I mean these are winnable games. I mean, they're going to play the NFC East. Okay,
always a good thing.
Always a good thing. And then they get the AFC East, which, I mean, winnable game.
There's like 1 to 2 good teams in the East, in the AFC East, if that.
Absolutely. So they're absolutely going to be Super Bowl contenders. Would I pick them to make the Super Bowl? No. But I think that as great as the starting 22 is, if anybody gets hurt, especially on defense, I don't know how deep they are. It lends itself to these questions. I mean, they're very well coached, as good as you can get. So yeah, no, I have the Bucs running it back.
And I'm assuming we have them all to win a division then.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Definitely.
Nice.
So last and certainly not least, the Superdome, the Saints. We really, this is one of the biggest question marks in the NFL, I think, this team. We just have been so used to the Saints, especially the last few years, coasting to division title after division title. Now with Drew Brees gone, this team has a chance to surprise a lot of people, but also disappoint a lot of people. I guess Jameis Winston has the keys, right?
Yeah, definitely has the keys.
No, it's entirely. Yeah.
I think he's at a surprise a lot of people, Jameis Winston. Everyone's already counting him out, I feel, because, you can't take the key from Drew Brees right away and continue in his footsteps, which he's not. He's not Drew Brees. He's not going to be the next Drew Brees or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's not. Yes, he has a lot of great pieces around him. Kamara's going to help out a lot. He can do it all. You still have a couple of your receivers. Slant boy Michael Thomas is still there, but he's getting thrown into actually a really, really good situation, a really talented offense. So I do think Winston is going to prove a lot of the doubters and the haters wrong, that he can compete with this offense. It's not going to be the same caliber as Breeze, but I do think they're a lot better than people are already writing them off to be. So I'd give them a good 9 wins, 10 wins. I think 10. I think 10's a good spot for this team. I'm going to go with 10.
Yeah, I think that's where their floor should be, honestly. If you're spending all this money and you still have this constructed team, you should be, you shouldn't even be happy with 10 wins at that point. Where I think moving forward, a lot of players are going to have to kind of dispel what the media and what fans have put on them. As Clark said, slant boy Michael Thomas. See if he can run more than just slants. He's come out and said, I only ran a bunch of slants because Drew Brees could only throw the ball 5 yards. So that's all I could do. Alvin Kamara, as great as he is, can a running back still put an entire offense on his back in the year of 2021 and carry them all the way to the playoffs, as we've seen Derrick Henry do in the AFC, also in, not a great division. The NFC South could obviously be that case where Kamara could possibly lead them to 10, 11 wins. Defense, obviously, still super talented. Cam Jordan still there. Re-signed both of their safeties. One of the better cornerback duos in the league. So they're built out for this. But do I trust Jameis Winston? Not at all. Because he had what Tom Brady did in Tampa. Not much difference. Brady brought in a couple of his guys, not necessarily that much more. He had that defense. He had Godwin. He had Evans. He had O.J. Howard. He had that line besides Tristan Wirfs. And you saw you saw the difference in Tampa with Brady. And obviously Brady is one of the greatest of all time. But I just don't – let's remember how many interceptions Jameis Winston throws. And as good as that defense is, can that defense continue to bail him out time and time and time again when he is going to put them in bad situations? There are worse quarterbacks out there than Jameis Winston, for sure. But there are also a lot of better quarterbacks out there. Also, we still don't even know what's going on with Taysom Hill. They still have allegedly said that he's their quarterback of the future. But he's not young, and they also drafted Ian Book, and I don't know what to make out for this team, whether they still think they're going to be a contender or whether they're just kind of ready to roll over.
Oof, I think they're going to be caught in the middle there, and the problem is that this salary cap issue thrusts itself into the front when you're looking at this team. They don't really have any flexibility, and beyond this year, it's probably going to be in hell.
For the past 4 years, all they've done is just sign everybody, but continue to push the money back. Mm-hmm. Well, eventually, people say the salary cap is made up. Eventually, it's not. Eventually, you do have to pay people in a certain year, and if you're going to continue to add years on to a contract, eventually the year where you have to pay somebody $40 million, that year is going to come.
So they're going to be $30 million over the cap next year, with a lot of their best players free agents after next year, or this season, we should say. Should they just tank? Should they tank it?
Not a bad idea, but I feel like there's just too much talent there to tank, honestly. They have a team that, could obviously just get a wild card spot. They're not going to win a division, but they can definitely sneak into a wild card spot. They're too talented to tank. This isn't the Eagles.
Yeah.
Or this isn't any other crappy team like that, is missing a lot of stuff. It can be helped by an early draft pick, and they're too good to tank. And no, I don't think they should tank.
That's fair.
The NFL is also different in the way in baseball or basketball, you have a talented team that's underperforming. You trade off the big assets you have, you get stuff back for them. You know, in the NFL, we just seen Julio Jones got traded for a second rounder, a fourth future rounder, and a sixth future rounder. You don't get what you get for star players in the NFL the way you do in the NBA. You know, the Nets give up 7 picks for James Harden and all this other stuff. You have to like beg a team to take your star wide receiver for the sheer cap hit in the NFL. And that's the other problem for the Saints is they can't trade Michael Thomas. They can't trade Ryan Ramczyk. They can't trade Alvin Kamara because the cap hit and the dead cap that would be on their books wouldn't help them at all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, outside of the offensive line, I see a lot of question marks on the roster. I mean, they could very well be exclamation points and ended up being because, I mean, there's a lot of pieces there. But I think that this team is, I think 10-7 is the ceiling. I think we're going to see them 9-8 in that range.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. 9-10 wins.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. That's my second place team, obviously, if these viewers couldn't tell. So my order from top to bottom, I'm going to go Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons from 1 to 4.
Bucks, Saints, Panthers.
Yeah, Falcons in last. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right. Jesse, what are you feeling?
There's a small part of me that wants to put the Panthers ahead of the Saints.
Hey.
But I don't think it's there yet. I feel the way about Carolina, the way I felt about Arizona last year of like they have a lot going on there and a lot that I like, but I still feel like they're another year away. So I will continue the trend. Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons. Don't be surprised if the Panthers and Saints are closer than anticipated.
They'll play each other really well. There's a lot of good interdivision games always with this division. Clark, hit us with this outro.
You guys know the drill. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Sports Department Podcast. Us three appreciate it. Steve and Justin do as well. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Follow us on our social medias on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at SportsDepthPod. That's Sports DEPT Pod. Like Joe said in the beginning, we're starting the NFL, going division by division, breaking them all down. MLB trade deadline review. That should be coming out soon once some trades start being made. Finals are wrapping up. That podcast is coming, and of course, wrestling as well. So stay tuned to all that fun stuff, and we'll see you in the next episode.